collectively, we've already spent about, or in the process of spending about $2.8 trillion. We now have a debt the size of our economy. So I have said, and the president has said as well, that we need to take a pause here and take a look at what we've done, see what's working, see what isn't, and also begin to encourage the governors around the country who have the decision-making ability to begin to open up the economy.
Got to stop spending money. That's a Mitch McConnell. That's a cocaine Mitch way of saying, look, we gotta take a breather here, guys. We can't just be throwing trillions out. Even the U.S. federal government can't just be throwing trillions out the window like they're, candy corns or M&Ms or something. So, by the way, producer Mark, what are the best of all M&M flavors that are out there? What is number one?
Oh, that's tough. Definitely, regular is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. I do like the caramel, and I saw some sort of fudge-filled one recently.
I discovered recently for the holidays, I discovered hazelnut M&Ms, and let me tell you, they are fantastic.
They weren't as good as I wanted them to be.
I still like them.
I wanted them to be filled with Nutella, but they weren't.
I find peanut M&Ms very disappointing.
Yeah, I'm not a big peanut butter kind of guy.
Peanut butter, amazing. Peanut, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Not into it. Not having it. So Mitch McConnell saying, no more M&Ms for you, America, or at least we got to stop throwing M&Ms. We got to stop doing this. We can't keep showering every problem with money when our economy is working at a fraction of its normal capacity. This would be bad to be spending at this level, even if the economy was really good, but we're going way beyond what anybody thought would be possible. And, we've now reached this point where it is deeply political. In this new Pelosi's pushing for she's telling us what she wants to do, which is to transform America. This is going back to the Obama idea and the progressives' idea for the last 100 years of just keep changing America as radically as you can and do whatever you got to do to get the power necessary for that process. Here's Pelosi saying that, this COVID-19 situation, it's an opportunity. Play 9.
We must all take an extra moment to understand the numbers we are seeing, which are the most overwhelming in our lifetimes. These numbers require action that we've never had to take before. There are those who said, let's just pause. But the families who are suffering know that hunger doesn't take a pause, the rent doesn't take a pause, the bills don't take a pause, the hardship of losing a job or tragically losing a loved one doesn't take a pause. This is an historic challenge and therefore momentous opportunity for us to meet the needs of the American people to save their lives, their livelihoods, and our democracy.
Let's understand this, friends. We are in the early phase right now of what, unless we stop it, will be the most massive, momentous expansion of government at all levels that we have seen in this country in 100 years. And it may, in fact, be the most massive expansion of the government that has ever happened. It certainly is the biggest expansion of the debt based on numbers. And even if you were to look to control it for the value of the dollar then versus the value of the dollar now, still, even if you were to adjust it, it would be, we've never seen anything like this. The Democrats, this is the biggest opportunity that they have had in my lifetime to transform the American government into being the mega state that they ideologically and really emotionally and at some level spiritually are attached to. That's what's happening right now, and we have to see it for what it is, because otherwise we're just going to be in a position where we are engaged in what you could call in the financial markets, people refer to repeat surprise. You're just going to say, oh, wait a second, you mean that here we are, we're going forward, and they're using this. We knew in the beginning they said it was a crisis, they were going to use this as an opportunity, and now they're expanding the government, and they're going to keep expanding government, and they're doing all the things that we would have assumed, if we had taken a step back, the left would do in a moment like this. Yes, that is exactly what is happening right now. But it's hard to see it in the moment because you want to believe that Democrats can put aside their partisan wish list, their partisan fantasy just while we're dealing with this problem. You want to believe that that's happening, but it's not. They are using this now for political purposes, and their primary motivation in the policies that they're pushing, because they've bought into this false narrative of if it saves just one life, just like they do with gun control. That is a recipe always for government absolutism. If my policy can save just one life, it morally overrides any objection you might have, any right you may have. There's no outer limit to this. There's no boundary for this. And they've established this. This is now the position. If more people will die from COVID-19, and who knows even over what horizon? I mean, maybe in the aggregate, more people won't die if we were to just open and just go about our normal lives, because if we're going to herd immunity right now, guess what? That means people are getting infected no matter what the government says or does. And it just changes the speed, but it does not change the overall pool of the infected. If, in fact, now I'm not saying that's true, but increasingly it looks like we still have a lot of infection, 300,000 infections a day under lockdown. That's the best guess they have right now. So every 10 days, another 3 million people will have been infected in this country with COVID-19 during lockdown. So what do we think we're really accomplishing here? It's a political motivation, not a health, not an epidemiological motivation at its core, but they use this premise, this false premise of if a government policy can save just one life, you cannot object to it, in order to shut down all opposition. This is also why Pelosi she understands this, and that's why it's very hard to get through. It's very hard to push through. I have people that are writing into me on social media, oh, you want old people to die, horrible things. It's a total lie. These people are morons, but they're leftists. So they already believe an ideology that is godless, hateful, and stupid. And there's no escape from that as long as they believe that ideology. That's what they think, and that's who they are. But they use this to shut down any objection that we have to what they're trying to do. And you can already see it. I mean, Pelosi's pushing this another $3 trillion in spending. And you know what they want to do? They want to extend the federal $600 unemployment sweetener. Well, if they extend that to 2021, which is what Pelosi's bill looks to do right now, that she's already unveiled this bill, you have effectively achieved a stale $15 plus minimum wage. Based on how much money people will be making into 2021, you're not going to get these workers back. And then Pelosi will just say, maybe we extend the employment benefits another 6 months and another 6 months. And the only way you get people to want to go off unemployment at that rate, given what the state benefits will be, and the government keeps, refilling the coffer, is if you're going to offer somebody considerably more money. So now you're looking at, again, $15 plus. You might have to, small business owners will be faced with, you either pay a $20 minimum wage or people would rather be on unemployment. And into 2021, this is real, folks. This is happening right now. This is what your government is doing in your name. It's a disaster. We have to wrest control back. I knew, I said it to you, you said it to me. We knew that they would seize too much power and they would not relinquish it. They would use the emergency to take the power into their hands, and then their greedy little fingers, the government would not release the authority that they have just taken it upon themselves to have in this crisis. We saw it coming and we didn't stop it. Now we have to push back, and it's going to be a fight. Government likes power, doesn't like to give it up at any level, at any time.
Look, before the Me Too movement, women were not listened to who were telling what had happened to them. Since Me Too, women are listened to. Now, I've heard Joe Biden's explanation. I think it's sufficient. I think he will be a great candidate. I think he will be a great president, and I think he'll help us take back the Senate.
Chuck Schumer weighs in here with, before the Me Too movement, women were not listened to. Now they are listened to. But, I mean, we've heard enough about this Tara Reade person. Let's move on. Oh, man, he is always so predictable. Consistent, at least, in his sliminess. But let's talk about where the Tara Reade allegations currently stand, and also the Biden candidacy overall and the politics of the moment. For that, we are joined by our friend Tiana Lowe. She is a commentary writer at the Washington Examiner and also a contributor to The First on Pluto TV. Tiana, thanks so much.
Hi, Buck. Thanks for having me.
So Chuck Schumer says, yeah, no, everyone's listened to now, but Tara Reade's been listened to, and he believes Joe Biden. So how do we describe the standard now that Democrats are using? Is there a standard? Can they define what the standard is?
I mean, the only discernible standard right now is whether or not you have a D next to your name. Quite frankly, let's just in short summarize the evidence differentiating Christine Blasey Ford and Tara Reade. With Christine Blasey Ford, you had every single person who she named at being at the party where this assault allegedly happened. They deny that such a party ever existed. The earliest corroboration we have of her telling anyone about this alleged assault is in 2012, when Kavanaugh was back in the news because he was on Mitt Romney's shortlist for the Supreme Court. If you look at Tara Reade's allegation, you have multiple people with a few corroborative problems who say that she alleged that Biden had assaulted her at the time. But you have at least one person on the record, her neighbor, Linda Lacasse, who's willing to say that she said so 2 or 3 years after the fact, as well as an official document submitted by her husband in response to a restraining order in 1996. So it's 3 years after the alleged assault, claiming that Reade had undergone some traumatic harassment. At the very least, it's clear cut that Reade faced harassment from Biden. The assault, though, however, has so much more corroboration than the Ford allegation ever did. And the fact that Democrats are simply, they aren't even saying that they think that the evidence is insufficient. They're outright just saying that they just don't believe her. It's truly gross, and it just goes to show how manipulative and nasty this specific strain of so-called feminism is.
And on this, just more general point of who the Democrats put forward to lead the country, you know, they wanted to make the case that Donald Trump was super unethical. And put aside, we've all heard all the criticisms of Trump plenty in this regard and many others. But they wanted to make the case to us that Trump was deeply unethical, and they put forward Hillary Clinton. And then they made the case that, and along with also that Donald Trump, you know, the Billy Bush tapes and everything else. And now here they are. They have another chance to put someone forward to oppose Donald Trump. And they put up a guy Joe Biden, who has corruption problems with Burisma in Ukraine and his son. Whether it's illegal or not, it still looks really gross. It's very obvious what happened there. Has a credible allegation of sexual assault against him. And now it seems pretty clear the Democrats' plan is to keep Joe Biden hidden away in the basement until Election Day. Tina, is that their best move, given the realities of what we're seeing about Joe Biden, who's being tested in ways that he's never been tested before?
I mean, the scary thing is that probably is their best move, just keeping him off the campaign trail. You know, I said at the outset that in the long run, he would be best served by radical transparency and addressing the Reade allegation to start with. Honestly, the Burisma issue, the Hunter Biden stuff, I never thought that was going to stick. No one thinks that Joe Biden lacks any corruption, but he was supposed to be the personal decency candidate. Whereas Trump bragged about grabbing women by the you-know-what, Biden was supposed to be the family man, the respectable man. That he didn't address this head on for over a month made it look like he has something to hide. And now that he's not opening up his University of Delaware archives, it still looks like he has something to hide. I don't know if he does. I don't know if Tara Reade is telling the truth. But right now, the evidence is quite disturbing, and he is not acting like someone who wants to be immediately exonerated. So what's his best bet? Right now, about 1/3 of all voters tend to believe that Tara Reade is telling the truth, and that includes 1/5 of all Democrats. But still, you know, a lot of these people are going to vote for Biden anyway. But, you know, that might not be great for them. But it does mean that Trump, in a way, is kind of inoculated from one of his biggest deficits, which is the character perception deficit. He no longer really has to worry about, oh, now he's running against this moral paragon with women. Because quite frankly, I think the Tara Reade allegation has tainted Biden's candidacy in a very serious way, especially among the suburban women who were crucial in helping Democrats win the House in 2018.
Yeah, and this is also coming amidst a whole lot of other stuff about Biden that is not in question. I mean, the photos of him sniffing people and kissing women's heads. And I mean, he definitely is a grabby, weird guy with women and has been for a long time. I don't think there's really any dispute about that. I was told by a Secret Service agent who was present about what had been written about Biden. I mean, I can ask you as a woman, if you were in the Secret Service and your protectee, in this case Joe Biden, found it to be a normal routine to go old man Biden, by the way, I'm just saying, I mean, I can't prevent people from visualizing because I got to describe a situation, but he would go swimming naked in front of not just the Secret Service detailees, but female Secret Service detailees. If that were my wife or my girlfriend, I wouldn't think that's okay. That's just a matter of record now.
No, it's absolutely not. And again, this is what I said last year when the initial Biden allegations, if we can really call them that, but the hair sniffing and the touching, we all know that's wrong. If we saw our grandparents do that, we would correct them. We would not let our dads sniff random women's hair. But the fact is, Biden is just a classic person in power who just got away with all of it for so long.
Yeah, I mean, he's the class. It's interesting because the Democrats, the woke left, has put forward the classic, the sort of stereotype, really, of the, power hungry, power mad white male who grabs at people and abuses his position specifically for, gratification with the opposite sex. I mean, that's this guy is like looking like the Matt Lauer of the political world right now. And, they're just going to, I'm sure you saw the editorial in the New York Times, right? It was maybe a week or two ago where a woman was like, oh, I totally believe her. I'm voting for Biden anyway. Oh, so now you're just going to vote for a guy who's a sexual assaulter. I actually don't believe like the allegation against Trump and Bergdorf Goodman. Like, I just don't think that the evidence was on that woman's side. I forget her name now, the one who wrote the book and came forward. But to say that you believe it and you don't care, that's a whole other level that Democrats are hitting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I seem to recall a big, huge hashtag and movement that we had to talk about how, rape is bad and we shouldn't reward sexual assailants with positions of power. I mean, it was a whole thing. But apparently that was a very long time ago. And apparently it was just to make sure that we could say Orange Man bad and pretend that we had a reckoning about Bill Clinton. But, apparently it's over now. So it's quite unfortunate.
When are you going to have, we got to have you have a Zoom throwdown with some radical left-wing feminists on this issue. That would be a good debate. There's never good debates anymore. It's everyone's just, preaching to the choir. Nobody will leave because this would be really interesting.
Yeah, no, and I think I'm someone who's been pretty fair and pretty sympathetic to not only Biden, but specifically conservatives entertaining Biden's candidacy. But the Tara Reade thing, I mean, that's kind of the last straw. If you're going to vote against tax cuts and judges and an agenda that you like because you want to vote in a referendum against Trump's character, you don't do it for the guy who's running away from a credible sexual assault allegation.
Fair point. Tiana Lowe, everybody, check out her latest at the WashingtonExaminer.com. Also look for her here as a contributor on The First. Tiana, thanks so much. Haven't done that for a while. I thought producer Mark might miss it, so I wanted to bring back when I sing along with the roll call. One thing I will tell you. I did
not.
Thanks for the clarification, just in case we didn't.
No problem.
One thing I will tell you about having a dog that's your main companion. I do get to see the Snow Princess sometimes during the week, but not all the time. Although she'd probably go nuts having to deal with me 24/7 in close quarters like this. Oh, I guess that's called, for some people, that's marriage, isn't it? You live together. That's the whole thing. When you have a dog around you all the time, I find that you come up with new names for the dog, and then you also start singing stupid songs to the dog. And I wonder if at some point the dog is like, what has happened to my human? They do have, I'm telling you, this little French bulldog has got at least the cognitive ability of like a 2 or a 3-year-old human. I mean, she understands words. She knows her name when it's said. I mean, there's thought process that goes into this. If I ever, tell her no or naughty or something, she punishes me by staring into the corner and not wanting to hang out for a while. So, you learn things here. You did say, Producer Mark, there's been a big surge. I just looked this up yesterday again. We look for those little silver linings, such as they exist in this current debacle and, catastrophe as it plays out across the country. But a lot of shelters have seen a huge increase in adoptions of dogs and cats, which makes sense.
And a lot of people are fostering animals right now just because they're going to be home now, but they won't be home in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And so instead of animals being in cages, they're home with people and they're getting, better access to care and cuddles. All right, Kevin, kicking us off in roll call. Remember, if you want to be a part of roll call, we always hope you do. We'd love to get some new voices in the mix too. First time, you can put in the subject line, instead of "I love producer Mark" or "Producer Mark, you're hilarious," which will usually be a good way to get yourself into roll call. You can also write in the subject, first time roll call, and then we'll try to make sure that people that have never gotten a chance to have their voice on the show will be on the show. So Team Buck at iHeartMedia.com or Facebook.com/Buck Sexton. And like I said, some of you have found me on Instagram, which is great. It's just Buck Sexton. Just remember, though, if you send a message, you got to say, for roll call and then your name, and then you can write your message. Otherwise, it's cat lover 5259 or something sending me a message, and I'm like, is this a person or is this some Russian bot trying to throw an election? All right, Kevin. Buck, the people elected Donald Trump. The Democrat coup failed. Now the DNC strategy has shifted to making we the people suffer until we throw him out. How far does this go? The left is evil, wolves in sheep's clothing. Speaking of clothing, where's the Buck Sexton apparel line? I went to bucksexton.com hoping to find a Producer Mark t-shirt, but no joy. Shields high. We are hoping to do that. We have a limited bandwidth because of all the content we currently do, and that's just a big way of saying we need more staff. I mean, right now we're already running on what you would consider for a nationally syndicated show with as many listeners as we have. We're at a skeleton crew every day. So yeah, although I don't feel like a skeleton these days with all the mac and cheese I've been eating, and with the big bowl of carbonara that Snow Princess made for me from scratch, gluten free. I've been eating it for breakfast. I got to tell you, Producer Mark, carbonara pasta for breakfast. It's got bacon in it. Makes perfect sense.
Have you finally started heating it up?
Yeah, she looked at me and she's like, it's kind of savage, you're eating it out of a giant metal bowl from the fridge, cold.
Savage is one word for it. I was going to go with sad.
I mean, it was delicious. What do you mean sad? It tastes fantastic. Are you kidding me? Cold pasta is great. Oh, it's amazing. I get into it. But yeah, I did start heating it up. I'm a little more civilized now. But have you? What did you tell me? What is the favorite pasta? What's the number? What is your go-to Producer Mark pasta?
Oh, mac and cheese.
Okay, but like you're an Italian restaurant, you can't order mac and cheese.
I mean, you never know. I guess if I'm in an Italian place, penne alla vodka.
It's funny. So I watched a video on how to make that recently. I want to make it from scratch. Not that hard. Not really that hard. So
yeah, it's very easy when you go and get a jar of sauce from the grocery store and pour it over some pasta.
Just, Producer Mark, we're going to get you cooking. We're going to get you cooking.
Right.
And Mrs. Mark is going to come home from her work in the healthcare industry, and you're going to have laid out like a beautiful, from scratch, penne alla vodka feast. And you'll even have, like a little guy playing the guitar, like in Lady and the Tramp,
I don't think any of that's going to happen, considering she's a much better cook and she enjoys it.
Well, then you're a lucky man, and there we have it. So I'm just saying, if you want to surprise her for the birthday. When's Producer Mark's birthday? We got to get this one on the
It was a month ago.
Well, happy birthday from a month ago, Producer Mark.
You literally did a minute on wishing me a happy birthday.
I do a lot of radio.
You really have the memory of a fish sometimes.
It's all just cram. Now I realize I did. I had a whole thing.
I could tell you, oh yeah, my birthday's tomorrow, Buck, and you would have believed me.
Oh my God, I have to cram so much information in. It's like I'm doing final exams every day, and I got nothing left. Snow Princess sometimes is like, you told me that story yesterday. I'm like, I don't know what stories I've told. I don't know what I'm saying. I just so much radio. All right, John. Buck, I don't know how involved Obama was in the whole Russia conspiracy. I don't know how involved he was with Flynn. But at this point, no one can convince me he wasn't involved. I believe he was in the background often, possibly even calling some of the shots. But there would be more evidence leading back to the White House if he was hands-on. But there is no way, especially with all that we know now, that he wasn't involved to some degree. John, that's you and I agree on this one. There's no way that Obama wasn't at least aware of this, and that this didn't set off enormous alarm bells and all kinds of red flags. You're gonna have your people go after the incoming. You would operate under a we can't share all of the national security information that we have with the new national security apparatus of a duly elected president and his administration. That's stunning. That is coup-like stuff. I mean, that's not the coup itself, but that's if you're preparing for a coup later, you would do that. Or if you had been preparing for a coup before, you don't want anyone to find out. Soft coup, using the law, but that's, using some variant of legal interpretation. Oh, Trump colluded with Russia. He's a traitor. He can't be the president. Let's go have the Sergeant at Arms of Congress arrest him. Whatever crazy dream the libs were thinking they were going to, or just have the Obama administration say, sorry, we have to hold a new election. And who knows what they were really thinking. They sit around talking about how Trump's not going to willingly leave office all the time. There's been no reason to believe that. They also said that he was a fascist for the first 2 years. And now here we are where you have a situation you could not dream of a bigger opening for fascism in America than what we are seeing happen right now, where if you disagree with government policy, you're literally killing people by wanting to go outside and live your life. You're literally killing people. That's what they're telling you. Biggest opening for fascism you could ever see. And Donald Trump is like, okay, let's work together. Let's, give the states autonomy. What are the experts saying? Let's inform the public. Let's get reopened. Let's get people up and running on the economy. The opposite of a fascist approach. But do you think any of them apologize for that or say, I was wrong, I shouldn't have said that about the president? No, of course not. These lib journals, they're trash. Trash, I tell you. Oh, wow. Here we go. Scott writes, Dear Buck, I'm an essential rider share ride driver in the Denver metro area. And as happens, we sometimes hear how life is treating our customers. Well, first off, thanks to 93.7 Freedom FM in Denver, one of our great stations. We are number one on our time slot there. We're doing so well. Thank you to Team Buck in the Denver area for listening to the show. You guys are making Mark and me look good to our bosses all the time. So thank you for tuning in and making this such a hit show in that area. I picked a man up, and when I asked him how life was for him during the lockdown, he proceeded to recount his recent financial status. He said he got laid off from his restaurant job, but received his tax refund and his stimulus check, so he was feeling pretty secure. He started receiving unemployment, which was more per week than he was making while working at the restaurant. Just when he thought life was good, it got even better. His old employer called and asked him to come back to work and said that he would receive back pay, but he had to say he had been working all along if anyone asked. Oh, and they were going to pay him for 40 hours, but he only had to work 20. At that point, with a nice raise, he was making more than his unemployment compensation, and he was happy to be contributing to society again. He was happier still this week when his boss told him that not enough of his former workmates wanted to come back to work, so they had to give him another big raise. To his credit, the young man said he's making more money than he ever has in his life, but he didn't feel great about it. Shields high. Scott, this is working the system. This is what's going to happen. People are going to work the system. Big companies, individuals. Everyone just feels like the federal government's now that the piggy bank has been broken open. How many coins are you going to get for yourself? That's the attitude. It's a free-for-all. You're going to see a lot of this. And as far as the Democrats are concerned, as long as their constituencies are getting paid off and as long as this is enlarging government, increasing the debt and making they're effectively making the government's authority feel like it's permanent in this regard, that they can just create what would be a universal basic income. I mean, if we can do this for 6 months or a year, giving people money to stay home, why can't we give anyone who stays home money? Why not just give everyone direct payments, $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month? We're running up so many trillions of dollars in debt, and it's all going to the corporations, they say. So what is the response to this? Yeah. Michael, hey, Buck, I have 2 questions related to Governor Cuomo labeling the Wu flu as being caused by a European virus. One, when the president refers to the virus as a Chinese virus, he is labeled as racist. So wouldn't be labeling it European also be considered racist? I'll answer that first. No, because it's not possible to be racist against Europeans, the left would say, or at least not possibly racist against white Europeans. There is no such thing as anti-white racism, the left says, and there's no such thing as anti-white European racism. The left also holds to that. Yeah, that's what they believe. So what is animus against people for white skin called? We don't really have a word for it. They don't believe that it can even happen, which inherently means they must think that animus against people for being white, the left has to believe, if you just logically work this problem through, that animus that any person has, including really a sort of self-animus, right? The people that have white guilt, but anyone who has a problem with somebody else because of their white skin or thinks less of them or thinks that they have benefited from society in ways that they can't, that belief against white people has to be inherently justified by history, by current systemic oppression and race, whatever it is. But they don't believe that it's possible. And I'm serious. This is a belief on the left. They don't think that it's possible to have anti-white racism. That's not possible. Now, that gets tested sometimes in the courts when you have attacks on individuals who are white because they're white. And is that a hate crime? Can that be a hate crime? The answer is yes, although authorities are usually very slow to charge that one. All right, number 2. Since it is racist to mention the source of the virus or pandemic, can we celebrate Columbus Day this year, especially since the greatest minds of the 15th century had no idea how viruses and bacteria were transmitted and how they, not bad vapors, cause disease? Only hoping we can regain some sanity in our discussions. Masks high. I'm since it is racist. Oh, because Columbus brought the explorers. You kind of Mark, right? This was a little bit of a couple of leaps here, right? So it's because Columbus and the Europeans brought virus and flu and other things into the New World, which decimated the native population here. We're not allowed to talk about that because it's racist, kind of, for them, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're the history guy, so I would assume.
Yeah, but that's what he's trying to say, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, a little, Michael. I see what you're saying. Creative, a little bit of a stretch. Columbus Day in Italian on behalf of the Spaniards, but that's. I actually, I'm not too far. I can get to Columbus Circle pretty easily, and I think I'm just gonna tell you one day they're gonna pull that statue down. They're gonna manage. I don't mean they're gonna actually just destroy it, although they might do that too. But they're gonna get rid of it, and they're gonna want to rename the circle. Columbus is marked for history book extinction. They're gonna find a way. More roll call rolling through here. TJ writes, Buck, there's no doubt that Flynn should be further vindicated. Do you think Trump may be holding that vindication to campaign on? I.e., Trump speaking, if reelected, I will appoint wrongly accused and set up by the Obama administration, General Flynn, to such and such a position. Just a thought. TJ, I can't tell you that won't happen, but I think that's pretty unlikely. I don't think that that's the case, although I will note that it feels like there's been a real slowness for the release of information that we should have here, that we should have known, that's what I think. The release of classified stuff that should have been declassified and released to the public should have been faster. Remember, Trump was going to put out the FISA applications, declassify them a lot earlier than he did. And by the time they got out, I don't think they had the same impact they would have if we had known about it sooner. And the Democrats were able to run around and say their crazy stuff for quite a while. We got another from 93.7 FM Denver. Freedom, 93.7. Hey, Buck, hello from Denver. I just wanted to say that I find it funny that the Democrats refuse to give any type of temporary tax cut, and at the same time, they want to give every American $2,000 a month through the election. Obviously, something stinks here. They want everyone to know that they are giving you back your tax money for November election purposes. Just a thought. Thank you for your voice. Shields high. Well, thank you, Greg. And yeah, Democrats like to hand out goodies that are really just things they've taken from other people, and they pretend like they're so great and generous in the process. That's a common theme. Glynette. Hey, Buck and producer Mark. My name is Glynette. We figured that one out. I've just been listening for a few months, but really enjoy the show. Well, thank you so much, Glynette. We appreciate you listening. It's refreshing to hear a conservative viewpoint amidst the sea of liberal propaganda. I also laugh out loud every time I hear your Nancy Pelosi imitation. A little while back, I heard you bring up a C.S. Lewis quote. I had been reading his book, Mere Christianity, and thought this quote really describes the liberals at this point. It says, the most dangerous thing you can do is to take any one impulse of your own nature and set it up as the thing you ought to follow at all costs. There is not one of them which will not make us into devils if we set it up as an absolute guide. You might think love of humanity in general was safe, but it is not. If you leave out justice, you will find yourself breaking agreements and faking evidence in trials for the sake of humanity and become, in the end, a cruel and treacherous man. That's a really interesting quote. That's very good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Keep up the good work. Come to Colorado when you can escape New York. Shields high. Well, Glynette, I might have to move to Colorado. Denver sounds lovely this time of year. We'll talk more about that another time. Team, It has been real. It has been fantastic. I'll be back with you tomorrow, as we do every day. Keep yourself safe. Keep yourself positive. Shields high.